CNBC-TV18 Digital India Vision 8.0 in partnership with Google Workspace.
Hello and welcome to the Digital India Vision 8.0. I'm Shereen Bhan. This is our campaign to take our viewers through India's digital journey and more importantly chart out the road ahead. Joining me now is Amitabh Kant, the Sherpa for the G20. Remember, at the G20, one of our pillars that we intend to showcase is the Digital India pillar. The G20 is also, under India's presidency, set up a task force. It is headed by Mr. Kant along with Nandan Nilekani, and the G20 task force will look at digital public infrastructure for economic transformation, financial inclusion and development. To talk about the road ahead, joining me now is the man himself, Mr. Kant. Many thanks for joining us here on CNBC-TV18 on the Digital India program. Let me start by asking you about the task force. It was constituted in January. We're now almost in the last lap as far as the ministerial is concerned. Take me through where things currently stand on putting together a framework that we intend to present at the G20 meeting.
Yeah. So Shereen, the task force has had several meetings. I think the important thing to realize is that there is a vacuum in the governance of digital public infrastructure. I mean, most innovation in the last 2 decades have come through big tech. In the western part of the world, it's come through, Apple, it's come through Meta, it's come through, your Microsoft and Google. And in China, it's come through Tencent and Alibaba. What India did was to create an alternative which was based on public interest as a public layer, and on top of which we allowed private sector to innovate and compete. And therefore, we built on open source, open APIs, we built on interoperability, and that led to, digital identity, it led to bank accounts, it led to fast payments, it led to innovation through Diksha and Swayam in education, it led to DigiLocker, then it led to startups providing paperless, cashless credit. Other startups started doing wealth creation, taking stock markets to Tier 2, Tier 3 cities, and then we had insurance. Many startups started doing cashless, paperless insurance. So we believe that this is the first time that a developing nation has come up with a technological solution which really will be critical for the world, because you can technologically pole vault, you can really bring in greater level of financial inclusion, you can actually build up identity, banking, fast payments through the digital public infrastructure. The challenge is that there is no governance structure on that. There was a lack of a definition of DPI. Though the first DPIs really started with the internet and, but there is no definition as of now. So the G20's aim was to really first say that there is something called a digital public infrastructure, define it, standardize it, and then build up an international architecture for its governance. A lot of that work has been done during the course of India's presidency. But more than anything else, what India has done is to evangelize DPI through the year. We've held a host of workshops, we've held a host of seminars, we've evangelized it to an extent where everybody accepts that this is truly the future of the world. The digital public infrastructure is the alternative model which the world must take forward.
Speaking of this alternate model that India intends to showcase at the G20, I want to come back to what you said, that there is a vacuum in terms of governance framework. In fact, there is no definition of digital public infrastructure. Loosely, at least as far as the India experience is concerned, it is said to be societal scale digital solutions or digital systems that are really at population scale. So has the task force now arrived at a definition as well as a governance framework that will be presented perhaps as part of the presidency that India will take forward at the ministerial?
Yeah. So first of all, there will be this acceptance. What we have tried to do through the course of the year is the basic acceptance there is something called digital public infrastructure, which is based on open source, open API, interoperability, lay down some principles, have the high-level principles of it, define, take them forward. That is what the Digital Economy Working Group, which is actually meeting at present, will be doing, and the ministerial level will be doing and taking it forward. And I think we've done a huge amount of work through the year on this. And I think we will be successful in getting a definition out. We'll be successful in laying down the broad principles and laying down broadly an architecture which will enable us to lay down the international governance and financing of digital public infrastructure. I'm saying financing also is critical because it's important to understand that there are 4 billion people in the world who do not have a digital identity. There are 2.5 billion people who do not have a bank account. And there are 133 countries in the world which do not have even fast payments. So if you do not have this, then it's very difficult to lift people above poverty line. And it's very difficult to do direct benefit transfers, which India was able to do during the COVID. We were able to put money into the bank accounts of 800 million people straight away. For the global south, which is India's priority of the global south, it's very important that we are able to do this. And that is what we will be doing during the course of our presidency. We have done this very effectively throughout. We will crystallize it, finalize it, and spearhead it during the course of our presidency.
Mr. Kant, you said that there is broad consensus on a definition as far as digital public infrastructure is concerned, as well as the broad principles for the governance framework. But if you could shed some light on where things stand, what are the defining sort of pillars that we could perhaps see in the finalized text?
So it will be premature for me because the ministerial meeting is going on right now, and then it will come to the Sherpa track, and then it will go finally to the leaders. But the important thing is that there is a broad understanding between all countries that DPIs are important. All the G7 countries, Europe, America, Russia, everybody accepts that DPI is the way forward. And that is important for us. There is a broad acceptance that DPIs have to be based on open source, open APIs, and interoperability. There's a broad acceptance. And therefore, we will take this forward. But the element of DPIs have got reflected in various other working groups as well. For instance, in the health track, there's been a lot of discussion on how DPIs can be utilized for improvement of health outcomes. We've seen in the development working groups, we've used data for governance and how data can be used in a very big and a very powerful manner to improve the sustainable development goals very effectively. And we've also seen very powerfully the implementation of DPIs in agriculture sector. So how digitization and the use of data can be a very big driver of change and transformation in the agriculture sector. In all these areas, so DPI really cuts across. And in the case of financial inclusion, it comes in the finance track. So what we've seen is DPIs cut through all the Sherpa track, it cuts through finance track, and it has become the center. Technological transformation and digital public infrastructure is one of our key priorities, and DPIs figure very prominently in them.
Speaking of the emphasis on digital public infrastructure and something that we intend to showcase, I want to understand where you see potential global cooperation. As far as payments is concerned, we've now seen India ink several agreements with other countries for taking the UPI outside of our own borders. We've seen similar talks as far as CoWIN is concerned. Not sure what has happened on that front, but where are the potential areas of global cooperation that you foresee? What about the Aadhaar and the basis of digital identity?
So you've seen a lot of work on this being done through MOSIP and IIT Bangalore. You've seen a lot of this work, innovation happening through our development finance, and we've tried to work with on several fronts in taking forward the MOSIP framework to several countries of the global south. In fact, a large number of countries from the global south have come and innovated with MOSEP so that they can straight away take digital identity which can be adapted to their country. You've also seen a vast number of countries utilizing fast payments of India, UPI, and linking it up to their payment system very effectively. So I really seen that what we've seen during the G20 presidency is a scaling up of our ambition and our ability to take our learnings to many other countries. And we will continue to scale that up. As I said, that 133 countries require fast payments in the world. We will continue to scale that up very vigorously. And I think what we would require is an alliance where resources can be put in, which many other countries, including IMF and World Bank, are keen to do. Some of that solution we'll find during our presidency, but we'll continue to pursue this as an aggressive agenda throughout G20 in future as well, so that the digital public infrastructure becomes a reality for the world of tomorrow.
CNBC-TV18 Digital India Vision 8.0 in partnership with Google Workspace.
On this alliance that you spoke of, Mr. Kant, what is the thinking there? Is this alliance going to sort of be the body that looks at global governance when it comes to digital public infrastructure? Or is it also looking at ways of financing? Because, when we talk about digital public infrastructure, the assumption is that it will continue to be financed by the public, i.e. by the sovereign, by the government. So what is this alliance likely to do? Look at governance or also look at ways of financing, given the aspects of global cooperation you just spoke of?
So one is that it's important to understand that in DPIs both the public and the private play a key role. If you feel that private is, in India, private sector has done a lot of innovation and competition in the marketplace has come from the private sector. So private sector has a very critical play. The public sector comes in only as far as the public interest component is concerned. And on top of that public interest layer, private sector competes. Without the private sector, you would not have had stock markets reaching the rural areas and tier 2, tier 3 cities. You would not have seen insurance. You would not have seen credit flow in a very big way, nor would you have seen fast payments to this extent where PhonePe competes with Google Pay and WhatsApp competes with, Paytm. So you've seen a whole range of new startups emerging. You've seen, Zerodha, Upstock, Grow. You've seen GoDigit. You've seen Acco. All these are companies which could grow. They became national assets on the back of the public interest layer that India had built up. And I think that is the strategy which every other country will need to work on. That build a public interest layer on top of which private sector competes. That's important. But the basic principles of that is what is important is which needs to be accepted. The architecture of the digital public infrastructure is what you will see getting accepted during the course of our G20 presidency. That's important. And the second is about building an alliance on which work is still going on whether this needs to be driven by a range of companies or whether it needs to be driven by international financial institutions. That is what we are trying to configure and we'll take it forward in the coming years.
So two potential announcements, one on the possibility of an alliance that looks at governance as well as financing issues, and two, as you pointed out, the governance framework, the architecture as far as digital public infrastructure is concerned. Mr. Kant, on our own journey now, and we've seen several changes being made.
So some of these issues. So some of these issues will be discussed during the Digital Economy Working Group Ministerial meeting, which is presently on right now.
That's right, currently on in Bangalore. But Mr. Kant, talking about our own experience, and while there has been significant progress, specifically on issues like identity as well as on better targeting of fiscal measures on the part of the government, there continue to be some more areas where we need to put better safeguards in place to ensure that there is greater access, but also ensure that the shortcomings are rectified. For instance, let's see what the CAG has pointed out as far as the Ayushman Bharat scheme is concerned, where, one mobile number is linked to several lakh beneficiaries, and that's just one scheme that we're speaking of. So given the experience as well as the learnings, what do you believe needs to be done where we find ourselves at this juncture, where significant progress has been made, but there is distance to be covered?
So, some of these issues with CAG has raised have been responded to by the then CEO in an article today in Times of India, and I think you should read that to figure out that, a lot of institutional measures were in place for that, and I don't want to get into that issue. But the important issue is, to my mind, that there are two critical challenges for the world. One is cyber security will play a key role, and therefore there have to be principles of cyber security which need to be accepted across G20 countries, which is critical. Second is that increasingly you'll see a lot of convergence of artificial intelligence with digital public infrastructure. As you've seen, increasingly you'll have local languages being used to raise queries and respond to them, and getting an immediate answer on which government scheme will be best suited for a beneficiary in, say, the rural areas of Bihar or the rural area of Odisha and so on. So I think the future really lies in building up cybersecurity to a great extent, and also the use of artificial intelligence, which to my mind will be very critical, because the AI will provide a lot of ability to technologically leapfrog for the benefit of our citizens in rural areas.
So are there any specific areas, Mr. Kant, if this is in a sense likely to be the second wave of disruption, specifically in the context of AI being merged with some of these initiatives that we just spoke of? Are there any focus areas where we could see this being built out?
No, so the issue of AI will definitely, at the leaders level, because this is an important issue in terms of generative AI, in terms of regulation, in terms of its evolution. So some of these issues will come up for discussion before the leaders as well.
Okay. Mr. Kant, I also want to ask you, as I pointed out, in the last lap now, approaching those big dates in September when we are going to see world leaders here in India. I imagine that you're having sleepless nights virtually as part of the negotiating process, as well as ensuring that everything is in order. Take me through, where things currently stand and what is keeping you most excited at this point in time.
So we are in the process of negotiating the leaders' declaration, which is a very challenging and a tough job. So we do that negotiation from 2 o'clock in the afternoon to about, it goes on till late night. And every word, every comma, every full stop is fought for by different countries. Different countries are at different stages of growth and evolution, and therefore on a range of issues, including digital transformation, climate, energy, you have to bring everybody along. G20 is about your ability to bring consensus, your ability to take everybody along, and that has been a very, very exciting, tough, very, very hard-working area, but I think it's a very fascinating area to work around. What the Prime Minister has termed us, saying that we've given us the task to be inclusive, decisive, ambitious and action-oriented, and that is what we are trying to do in the New Delhi Leaders' Declaration.
It's also a challenging environment geopolitically, given where we find ourselves with Russia as well as with China, and there is a significant trust deficit on the part of the world in dealing with both these nations at this point in time. How much harder is that making arriving at a consensus for you, Mr. Kant?
So, for us, the focus has been on developmental issues. Focus has been on all issues of sustainable development goals, of issues of driving, strong sustainable growth, inclusive growth as well. Focus has been on technological transformation, on multilateral institutions of 21st century, and gender and women empowerment. We've right now put Ukraine on a back burner. That's not an issue of importance as far as development and growth is concerned. That's not an issue of importance for the global south. We've acted like the voice of the global south. That is an important issue for some countries, but I think we should leave it. I don't think we should bother too much. We should continue to focus on developmental issues at present.
Mr. Kant, let me end then by asking you about the preparation now for the ministerial. Having so many world leaders in the capital at one time is going to be challenging from a security point of view, from an infrastructure point of view. Just give us a sense of the kind of arrangements that are being put in place to ensure that this runs smoothly.
No, so we are going to work very hard, and we are doing that work. We'll bring out the best of India. We'll improve our infrastructure. We'll ensure security. We'll do everything possible. And I would only request people living in Delhi to work from home or to move out of Delhi and have a nice holiday outside during the period of 6th to the 9th, so that there's no traffic breakdown in Delhi during that period, and that common citizen is not impacted. But it would be, it'll be good if they can have a nice holiday during that period, so that we can conduct this G20 in a very coordinated and peaceful manner.
Is the government going to incentivize this holiday that you expect people to take between the 6th to the 9th, Mr. Kant?
No, we are not going to incentivize. We are just going to promote nice holiday for citizens so that they can go and take a break during this period or work from home.
Okay, work from home between the 6th to the 9th of September, or take a holiday. That's the message there from the G20 Sherpa Amitabh Kant as we get ready for the final lap for the big ministerial that will be held here in the capital. Mr. Kant, always a pleasure. Many thanks for joining us here on CNBC-TV18, and we look forward to those announcements that you gave us some insight into when we talk about digital public infrastructure for economic transformation, financial inclusion and development. Well, with that, it is time for us to wrap up Digital India Vision 8.0. Do remember to stay tuned to CNBC-TV18 on TV as well as on our social media platforms and YouTube. We will bring you a lot more conversation here on the Digital India journey. From all of us here for now, goodbye. Thanks for watching.
CNBC-TV18 Digital India Vision 8.0 in partnership with Google Workspace.